And the action of extensor digitorum longus is going to be extending all of the toes and dorsiflexion of the foot. Extensor hallucis longus, what it does is it's only going to extend the large toe or the hallux. On the lateral lower leg, we have two muscles, which are called the peroneus longus and peroneus brevis, or you may also see them called fibularis longus and fibularis brevis. Now, what peroneus longus is going to do is eversion of the foot, and peroneus brevis is also going to evert the foot. So as we take a look, let's isolate those first muscles. Here's that tibialis anterior, and again, it's just lateral to the tibia bone. So once you move just lateral, that big muscle is going to be the tibialis anterior. Just lateral to it is where we will find this extensor digitorum longus. And if you trace this down here, you'll see how the tendon splits off into going to all of the toes here. Extensor hallucis longus is actually deep to extensor digitorum longus, so it's just underneath there. It's actually between extensor digitorum longus and tibialis anterior. But if you trace its tendon down, you'll see it go just to the big toe here. Now, when it's fully put together, this will be a little bit closer to what it looks like. So on the left side of the screen, we see tibia right here. So that's a super important landmark to help you figure out these front muscles of the lower leg. So once you start at the tibia, you move just lateral. That first muscle is going to be tibialis anterior. It's a pretty big muscle. And then we have our two other extensor muscles right here. So this one going down to the big toe, it's also closer to the big toe right here. That is going to be the extensor hallucis longus. One over, this is the extensor digitorum longus. If you trace this tendon down, you'll see it split and go to the toes, but it's also just closer to the toe side as well. Now, looking at these other muscles by themselves, we have our peroneus or fibularis muscle, so longus right here. And a lot of times when it gets more distal, you'll see it just be a really long, skinny tendon that sits on top of this fibularis or peroneus brevis. Fully put together, here is that tibialis anterior right here. There's our extensor digitorum. So right on the outside of the legs where we see our fibularis muscle. So here's longus. So you can see it just becomes a long, skinny tendon that slides behind that lateral malleolus. Just underneath here, we can see brevis. So that would be the peroneus or fibularis brevis underneath or deep to fibularis longus. Now working on the posterior lower leg, we're going to start more superficial. So these first three muscles work in a group. They're more superficial than the other three. Our first one's called gastrocnemius, and there are two parts to it. There's a medial and a lateral head. And what gastrocnemius is doing is it's causing plantar flexion of the foot. So standing on your toes, that is the gastrocnemius's action. Just deep to gastrocnemius, we have the soleus muscle, and soleus is also going to cause plantar flexion. Now, both of these muscles come together and form a very large tendon called the calcaneal tendon, or what you've probably heard of before this course, the Achilles tendon. Our last muscle here is called plantaris, and its muscle belly is going to be around the back of the knee, so the popliteal region, but it has a very long, skinny tendon, and it gets so skinny, it has actually been referred to as the freshman nerve, because freshmen always confuse it as a nerve because it's so small and skinny, but it's actually a tendon to this muscle, to plantaris. Now, plantaris is also going to run between gastrocnemius and soleus, so it'll be just underneath gastrocnemius and on top of soleus.